Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a very special video for you guys. It's going to be a Perfumers portfolio video. And if you've been watching my channel, you know that I've got these different series that I've been kind of running. I just kind of created them myself. I thought it would be a cool idea to talk about, in depth, the people behind the scenes, the creators, the ones who are, it was a very thankless job back in the day. Now, of course, they are starting to get some recognition, but in the 80s and even the 90s, up until Frederick Malle released his brand and started to put perfumers' names on the bottles and boxes, it was a very thankless behind-the-scenes job. The brands gave them no credit, all that kind of stuff. And now, of course, we have niche perfumers and indie perfumers who don't have to follow briefs from the big brands. They can kind of do as they want. But I've done a lot of these. If you've been watching, I've done the big names like Carlos Benaim, Guy Robert, Edmond Rudnitska, Jacques Cavalier, Alberto Morillas, on and on and on. Julien Rasquinet. You can go click on a playlist. I created a playlist just for the Perfumers portfolio video, and you can watch them, and I give credit to each one. There are some that need to be updated, if you will. There are some that, I've got bottles now that I didn't have before when I did the video. But for the most part, it's a great way to talk about a lot of fragrances and to, give the people behind the scenes the credit. And that's why I created this channel, for the love and art of perfumery. And I thought this would be a cool way to, talk about the perfumers themselves. So today we're going to do a glaring hole in that list. I kept saying, I think all the big names are done. I did the Jacques Polge, I did Olivier Polge, I did Cécile Zarokian, Kirkjohn, Pierre Bourdon. But there's one big name really that just stood out that I had to do as soon as possible. And that is going to be Thierry Vassar. Now, Thierry Vassar is joined at the hip by a woman named Delphine Jelk. So this is going to be kind of a combination video, mostly because there's a little bit of a scandal going on right now. Not a scandal, but if you're a big perfume head like I am, we like to speculate on things, if you will. And one of the speculations is that Delphine Jelk is kind of taking over the perfumer side of things, and Thierry Vassar is just kind of the face of the brand, and he is, securing ingredients. It's something he said on a stream from Persolaise that he did an interview a year or two ago, and he said that, and it kind of got everyone up in a titsy. It's something where there are some of the databases, and I'm going to use Parfumo for all of this. All of my videos, I basically go off of Parfumo. So if I ever do like a this year in perfume, and it says 1987 for one, and base notes or Fragrantica says 86 or 88, I'm going off of Parfumo. So 95% of this video is attributed to Thierry Vassar. There is a fragrance that's attributed to Delphine Jelk, but we don't really know the behind-the-scenes relationship. Delphine Jelk might be creating more of these, but not getting the recognition. They might be putting Vassar's name out there because he's kind of a trusted name. He's a name that Jean-Paul Guerlain handpicked. Jean-Paul Guerlain did not have a male heir to take over the family business, right? He famously said that a Guerlain can only be properly made by a Guerlain. And so he handpicked Thierry Vassar, who, very interesting story, he had a very tumultuous relationship with his father. And so Jean-Paul Guerlain to him was kind of seen as this fatherly figure. It's almost like Thierry Vassar was the son that Jean-Paul Guerlain never had. And he trusted him. And Jean-Paul Guerlain was unceremoniously dismissed from the position of perfumer, head perfumer of his own house by LVMH based on a scandal, something he said on live TV. We won't go into that, but if you want to look it up, you absolutely can. Even though, obviously, I don't condone what he said. No one knows why he said it. Thierry Vassar even said in an interview once, he said, Jean-Paul Guerlain is an old lion. And, what do we do with old lions? We put up with him. He's an old lion, which is a, it's a way of Thierry Vassar saying, obviously, I don't agree with what he said, but he still respects him as a man and as a perfumer. And I completely agree with what he's saying. He's one of my favorite perfumers of all time. I did a perfumers portfolio on him. I'll do one on his predecessors, Amy Guerlain and Jacques Guerlain, one day. But today it's going to be this amalgamation of Delphine Jelk and Thierry Vasser working as a team now. So, you know, there could be more of Jelk's work here that's not attributed to her, is why I'm going into that. But one thing I want to mention before I go into the fragrances that are attributed to Vasser is that he has done a fantastic job. He has maybe one of the hardest jobs in the entire perfume industry because he has to balance a couple things. So number one, he has to balance keeping the tradition of the House of Guerlain, who is one of my favorite houses, if not my favorite house. And, you know, he has a very tough job in a modern world where LVMH wants sales, right? They want dollars. And Guerlain needs to pay homage and pay tribute and keep the vintages, the classics. Some of the most classic fragrances ever created were done at Guerlain. And he needs to keep those in a modern format that's IFRA compatible, but still smells good. And I think he's done a great job of balancing that, you know, trying to get sales for LVMH with, you know, some designer-ish releases, which I have some here and I'll talk about, but also trying to keep the classics in good order. Like, for example, Shalimar. Shalimar came out in 1925. It made my top 10 as far as my favorite fragrances of all time. The story, even though this is made for women, I don't care. To me, it's completely unisex. I love this fragrance so much. It's one of my favorite perfumes of all time. It's definitely my favorite vanilla fragrance of all time. And, you know, how do you keep something like that modern? Obviously, they've done a lot of flankers on it, but even the modern eau de parfum, which I have, now the one that I have is 10 years older, so someone said the new stuff is not as good, but I've never smelled the brand new stuff. But from even the modern eau de parfum from a decade ago was fantastic. And stuff like Mitsuko. So you're talking about, in my opinion, the greatest Oriental, although I haven't smelled Emerald yet. I do have a sample, thanks to Rachel. And, you know, Mitsuko, the greatest Shifra of all time. How do you keep fragrances this iconic, right? This important to fragrance history, modern, with IFRA and sales and all that stuff, and the vintage perfume lovers like me who are going to analyze each iteration and compare and contrast, and, oh, the 1950s extrait doesn't smell like the extrait from the 70s or 90s or 2000. You know, how do you balance all that and keep LVMH happy? He has a very thankless job, very hard job, and I respect him for the job that he has done. He's done the same thing with the masculines. I think this is a 2009. 9TO2 is the batch code on this Abbey Rouge. This is fantastic. I have a vintage bottle. There is more leather in the vintage, in the older version of this from the 80s or 90s that I have. But even this is good. This is fantastic. This is one of my favorite masculine fragrances of all time. I love the contrast between the citruses and that Guerlain and leather that comes out in the base. But, you know, imagine keeping stuff like this relevant. Heritage made my top 10. Now, this is a vintage bottle, but I hear the current stuff is still quite good. I prefer the Eau de Toilette on both of these last two. You know, he's keeping stuff like Heritage, one of the greatest masculines ever created, in my opinion. I sent some to Russian Adam of Arise Ladore, and he absolutely loved it. He agreed with me. He said it's one of the best designer fragrances he's ever smelled. Lidge, L'Instant de Guerlain. This is a vintage, but even the current Eau de Parfum is fantastic. How do you keep all this stuff current and good and also do new releases, right? And that's his job. That's his balancing act. So let me read you a blurb about Thierry Vasser. It says, every perfume tells a story. Thierry Vasser remains true to this statement with each of his new creations. However, the head perfumer of Guerlain also writes history himself. After all, he was the first nose in the traditional Guerlain house in the 190 years of its existence. I'm guessing they mean that is not a Guerlain. But the Swiss-born designer does not feel any pressure at all. His career began after dropping out of school and then seeking an internship in a drugstore. This, in return, helped him discover his love for fragrances later on. His next stop was training as a perfumer at the Swiss Cadre Givaudan. In '93, he moved to Firmenich, where he worked for 9 years in its New York branch. Then, in 2002, Paris. Since 2008, he has worked for Guerlain as an in-house perfumer. Thierry Vasseur quickly learned his most important lesson there. No perfume from Guerlain can achieve perfection without the legendary Guerlainade. The base bouquet is part of every fragrance creation and consists of bergamot, rose, iris, tonka, and vanilla. He ignored this principle in his first fragrance, Idéal, which was launched in 2009, but this was to remain a one-off experiment. Since then, he can call a great number of creations his own. For Guerlain, he created, among others, I'm not going to read that because we're going to talk about the ones in my collection. The chief perfumer likes to carefully take care of the most important ingredient of each fragrance by himself. His visits to raw material suppliers on site around the world are an important part of his work. The pragmatic poet, as he calls himself with a twinkle in his eye, sees the personal bond as the basis of the success story that each of his fragrances carries. His personal favorite, Bulgarian Rose, is an important companion in this. Thierry Vasseur is a perfumer with every fiber of his body. Each new fragrance must first pass the self-test on him before he is allowed to proceed with others. Okay, nice little blurb on him. Thanks to Parfumo. Thank you for that. And so let's talk about the fragrances in my collection. We're going to do them in chronological order. So we're going to start at the beginning. And we're going to start with one of my favorites. Maybe my favorite Vasseur creation, which says something that it's not a Guerlain. But he created this little gem for the house of Salvador Dali. And it's called Dali pour Homme with the Dali lips. Love this bottle. And I actually have a backup. Anytime I have a backup, you know it's a fragrance that is near and dear to my heart. One mention, okay? I know that I talk a lot about vintages and discontinued fragrances. This one is still available, but the version you can buy now is watered down. It's not as good. So what you want to look for when you buy these, look for the box that has the picture of a Dali painting on the front, outlined with a gold border, okay? The vintages have a gold border, and you can tell, so you can see right here, the bottom of this one says COFCI, and this is what the old bottles look like. So you can see it says Dali Ray, which is Ray Limited, I think it stands for, part of the copyright of Dali, Patty, and they used to put the batch code in white just on the bottom, no sticker. So this is the older bottle, this 100 ml. And I actually just sprayed some on this card, thanks to my buddy Miasto Kelsey, who sent me some samples yesterday. I did a unboxing video of those samples, and I gave him a shout out. He has an eBay store. He sent me these little nice Chemi test strips. So you're supposed to spray, I guess, below the, or maybe you're supposed to spray, I don't know, but I sprayed it on the white part. Either way, it is such a fantastic creation. It's spicy, it's animalic, it has some bits and pieces of a fougere, but it's not traditional fougere in its own right, because it has this, beautiful lavender, but it's mixed with traditional masculine green notes. So you get like basil, tarragon, oak moss, and green patchouli, herbal green patchouli. If you like patchouli and you want to marry kind of a patchouli with a vintage fougere vibe with some animalic touches, there's a little bit, I think that even though there's civet, even though there's no civet listed, I get a little bit of a civet note here. It gives you a little bit of that Koros vibe, but more in a greener fougere take. It's absolutely fantastic. If you're a vintage masculine lover like I am, Salvador Dali pour Homme. I mean, I got this 50 ml bottle for peanuts, and you can see I've put a pretty decent dent in it. And I've got this 100 ml bottle for even more peanuts. I think I paid $22 on Mercari for this. And it's absolutely stunning. Everything from the bottle, the presentation, the detail of the cap, the fragrance, the I mean, they paid true attention to this. This and Pavarotti, from Luciano Pavarotti for Men from 1994 are the two best celebrity fragrances, hands down. Hands down. I don't think there's anything else they can get close to them. This is so good, though. I mean, I just want to wear it now that I'm smelling it. By the way, I forgot to do scent of the day. Let me hit myself with some fresh sprays because I want to talk about this with you guys real quick. I mentioned it in a live stream I did with Rich Mitch, but this is a fragrance called Daniel Hechter Character. So here's the bottle. Okay, it came out in '89, but what's interesting about Character is it smells like it came out in 81, 80 or 81, you know? Even though it came out at the end of the 80s, it has this early 80s vibe to it because it's spicy, it's woody, it's green, there's artemisia, basil, and a beautiful carnation note. But it's all about three big notes: castoreum, leather, and oak moss. And the leather and the castoreum, you know, I talk a lot about how in the vintage 80s fragrances, they built this leather accord around castoreum because castoreum naturally has this leathery, animalic tinge to it. You know, it makes the fragrance pop, but it's animalic and it's warm. It's got a little bit of warmth and natural leatheriness. Okay, so castoreum comes from a beaver, and it has this natural leatheriness to it, and they build the leather note around it, and it just complements vintage leather notes beautifully. Now, this is an old bottle. This is a vintage bottle I got from Rouge. The old bottles say Daniel Hechter Paris EDT. There's no symbol of the house right here. There's no like two lines. The newer bottles don't say Paris underneath Daniel Hechter. And they have these little like modern symbol lines going across the bottom above the name. The name's down below. Anyways, you'll be able to tell the difference, I think, if you compare and contrast. But this is a vintage bottle. I want to say it's probably from the 90s. Rouge found me this 30 ml. Look at the dent I've put in it already. I love this stuff. This stuff is... Oh my God, it is so, it's definitely, I gotta find a bigger bottle. That is definitely, and it's not super expensive. People aren't shouting it from the rooftops. If you love the stuff I loved, Character is it's actually right in line with stuff like Salvador, Dali, Pourpre. They're different, obviously. Character is more leathery. I mean, you can tell the color of the bottle's perfect. That leathery, old school 70s, 80s brown. It's more leathery, whereas Salvador Dali Pourpre is more green. It has much more green touches with the tarragon, basil, the lavender. There's no lavender in Character. And the civet, I think, is amped up in Salvador Dali Pourpre. But that's one of my favorite Thierry Wasser fragrances, okay? And that was 87. That was the earliest Thierry Wasser fragrance I have. I mean, how about that? First fragrance I have from him is one of my favorites. Which I don't know what that says about his creations. And he's got some good stuff in here, but I just prefer that style. And he made stuff in the 80s that were stylistically 80s, of course, because that's what was popular back then. But I love that stuff. The other one he made is this little beauty right here. This is Jacques Bogart Furyo. And he made this with Ron Winograd, which, by the way, let me show you something. 1 second. I found this on Amazon for $10. Think Don't Smell by Ron Winograd. It's a very short, you can see how small it is. It's a very short read. But I plan on reading this. There's some pictures in here of some of his favorite kind of, paintings. And so I plan on reading this and talking a little bit about it more. A Perfume Whisperer's Perspective on Smelling Fragrances. But the reason I bring this up is Furyo, which I usually don't have the box, but I actually happen to have the box on hand. And you can see this right here, almost like they're driving, because this is like a man on a motorcycle with a girl on the back. That's like her hair. It's a weird little artistic thing, but if you look at the actual If you go to Parfumo, type in Furyo, and click on the picture below the bottle, you'll see the actual photo of the guy on the motorcycle, and the woman's dress is like pulled up and it's wrapped around his head, you know, so, and it's blowing out behind the wind like they're driving on the motorcycle. And it's like it's a mask on his face, but it's the woman's dress. And this symbol is in the background. I absolutely love the marketing back then. It's like Parfum for Rebellion is what the advertisement was. And I'm a rebel at heart, big time rebel. Everything about the way I live my life is kind of in a rebel, a rebel category. I like the Raiders in the NFL just because they were the rebels in the 60s and 70s before I was even born. But when I started to understand the histories of the team, I was like, you know what? Even though I'm growing up in Texas, I'm a Raider fan. I mean, I just am. They fit my personality perfectly. And so I am very attracted to stuff like this. And I love you can tell it's like this is the street they're driving on. Here's like here's like a tire of the motorcycle. And look at the detail they put. You can feel the box is flat here. This is raised, but it's like a street. They took the time to make it seem like it's paved. I mean, just for a $20 fragrance, this is $27 on FragranceNet, FragranceBuy.ca still. It's been long discontinued. This is the modern stuff. There is a vintage bottle that will say 85% down here on the bottom. I would love to smell that stuff. Look at the dent in this bottle. This is one of my favorite animalic fragrances. This is one of the most tenacious fragrances you will ever smell, ever. It is, and it has one of the most beautiful ambrette seed notes I've ever smelled in perfumery. I mean, Dior Homme's ambrette, the ambrette that I smelled in Hera by Papillon, which, by the way, if you haven't watched my Liz Moore's interview, I implore you to go do that. I think that's the best thing I've ever put. One of the best things I've ever put on this channel, along with my Russian Adam interviews. There's so much information from those two. And she has a beautiful ambrette note in Hera, which was made for her daughter's wedding, right? And this has that with old school lavender and, of course, coriander, the masculine coriander of the 80s, which I love. Beautiful carnation and rose. Even though there's no rose listed, you get this definite rose accord. It's mixed with the geranium. Geranium gives off this rosiness, but it's all about, again, the base. The oak moss, the civet, the patchouli. It's just tenacious. This thing lasts forever on my skin. I don't care if it's the modern. I absolutely adore. I adore Furyo. I love the way it makes me feel when I wear it. I love everything about it. I have 6 bottles of this. And I would love to smell the vintage one day. If anyone has a vintage bottle of Furyo they're willing to part with, do let me know. So that is probably my second, maybe my first favorite Thierry Wasser. It's a toss-up between Salvador Dali, Homme, and Furyo. And none of them were made for Guerlain. So now we're going to get to the Guerlain. So in 2009, he wanted to put his stamp on the House of Guerlain, right? And because he just took over for Jean-Paul Guerlain a year earlier, and this was his first masculine release. It was called Guerlain Homme. Now, they initially released it, I think, in 2008 in EDT, and then in 2009, they released the Eau de Parfum Intense, is what they called it. You can see right there, Eau de Parfum Intense. This is the old school bottle with the giant Guerlain B on top. I love this bottle, by the way. Giant sprayer. And this is a 90 ml, I think. And you can see I've given it a fair amount of wear. I usually wear this. This is a summer. This is a spring summer fragrance for me. It's fresh, it's woody, it has some very interesting notes to it. So it has things like, there's a definite mojito, this peppermint / mojito vibe. It's honestly like mojito in a bottle, but there's some other notes in there. There's some rum, there's some floral notes, there's some lime in the opening, and there's this vetiver base. This is a vetiver perfume, all in all. I would call this a vetiver-based fragrance, okay? Because the vetiver in the base is the star of the show. But it's a vetiver like you've never smelled. So this doesn't get a lot of love because it's kind of light. I mean, that's why I go for the intense version, because it lasts forever. For a spring, summer fragrance, this stuff is, you can wear this to the office. You can wear this anywhere. I mean, it's so versatile, even in the heat. You could even wear this in the cold. This works fantastic in the cold. If you want a freshie, like if you're tired of wearing heavy, orientals or, liquor or tobacco fragrances in the dead of winter, try this. This is a beautiful freshie any time of the year, but I don't think it's sold that well. And they basically put this juice, this fragrance, in the new bottle that looks like the L'Homme Idéal bottle. We'll talk about it in just a second. I'll show you. So this bottle is discontinued, but as with many Guerlains, don't pay the markup for the vintage. Just buy the new stuff, because they do a great job of keeping the juice the same. They just constantly change the bottles. But I haven't smelled the newest iteration. So first, when they took it away from this, they put it in the Listerine bottles I showed you with Abbey Rouge. So they put this juice in this bottle and called it Guerlain Homme Eau de Parfum. They dropped the Intense. So the black bottle was the Intense. They just dropped the name Intense, but they kept the fragrance the same. Now they put it in the L'Homme Idéal bottles, which look like this. I've never smelled those, but the one in these Listerine bottles is to my nose exactly the same. So no need to pay the premium for the vintage, in my opinion. But this is a great fragrance that he came out with. Very underrated, I would say. It's unique, and it's a vetiver-based perfume, but if you don't like vetiver, that's one that I can easily tell you to kind of go for. And then, in 2010, he released this little gem, which at first I really didn't like. I almost sold it, actually. I almost sold it to Rich Mitch. And then I said, you know what, I better not. I'm going to regret selling this, even though, I was going to sell it to him at what I bought it for. These bottles are discontinued. They put them in the new, I don't know what they're called, whatever Guerlain calls their exclusive range now. They've got like a bottle that's refillable, and they sell it for double the price. But this is called Tonka Imp&eacute, okay? Tonka Imp&eacute. And this is a 75 ml tester bottle that I bought for a couple $100. Now the Tonka Imp&eacute you get, even though they give you more juice, I think they give you 200 mils. I can't remember, but it's like $400 or something. I don't know. I don't know how it all works out. Either way, I prefer these bottles. I think these look better. Look at the detailing. Guerlain down below. The detail on the gold plaque right here. And the bottle just feels great. They figured out the problem with the sprayer. There's no more bulb sprayer now. The early bottles had this bulb sprayer that the juice would evaporate. Anyways, this is a take on Tonka that when I first sprayed it, I didn't like it because I thought it was a little bit too sweet, and I thought, of course, I don't like sweet fragrances, and I thought that it was weak. Okay, now I've let it sit in the bottle a little bit. I've sprayed it up, worn it to bed a couple times. I'll wear it as my scent of the day as the year goes on and talk about it more on my channel. But now that I've had a chance, actually, Russian Adam sent me actual Tonka Bean Absolute, okay? So this was from 2 weeks ago from our Russian Adam interview. I can still smell the Tonka on here. And now that I've smelled the real Tonka, okay, not sweetened, the actual Tonka bean, Tonka Impériale is the best Tonka fragrance basically in the game right now. The other Tonka, the one that people compare it to is Fève Délicieuse by Christian Dior. Fève Délicieuse doesn't have anything on Tonka Impériale. Fève Délicieuse is uber disgustingly sweet. I don't like Fève Délicieuse. It gives me a headache. Tonka Impériale does a great job of showing the facets of the Tonka bean in a way that you still get a beautiful Guerlain perfume experience, if that makes sense. So he started playing with a note of almond in Tonka Impériale. He used rosemary, which is a traditionally masculine note, okay? So almond, rosemary, bergamot in the top, jasmine, tonka, and tobacco. And every time they use tonka, they almost always use tobacco. Every time they use tobacco, they almost always use tonka. Because tonka and tobacco just go together so well. They almost have some similarities in smell, but tonka adds a little bit of sweetness to the tobacco. But the way the tonka is done here, it's like you can really see the facets of the actual tonka bean. So I've come to appreciate it much more, and I'm glad I didn't sell it. That's why I don't trade. Someone sent me an email saying, hey, I saw you saying you don't like Absolute Pour Le Soir as much. I have a bottle of Seal de Gum. I'll trade you for it. And I said, no, I don't really do trades, man. I don't want to let go of Absolute Pour Le Soir. Even though it's not my favorite, I'm glad to have it. I'll buy it from you. And he said no. Yeah, that's why I'm always very reticent about getting rid of perfume. You know, I'm very careful about it because, you know, your nose changes, your ideas change, the perfume changes inside of the bottle when some air gets in. And so, you know, I will talk more about this, but I have a newfound appreciation for Tonka Impériale, even though it's not my favorite still. Because Tonka is just not my favorite note when it's highlighted in this fashion. You know, this fashion right here where Tonka is the main player, it's not my favorite. But I think Tonka Impériale is probably one of the best Tonka highlighting fragrances. And actually, I get a lot of attention when I wear this. People like it. That sweetness kind of draws people in, even though it's not my favorite. You know, if you want something that's kind of different but mass appealing in a strange kind of way, Tonka Impériale does the job. All right, so let's go to one of my favorite absolutes to orient fragrances, and this is called Encens Mythique. So this is a take on the old Guerlain B bottle, which basically looked like this. This is what the old Guerlain B bottle looked like. This is Mouchoir de Monsieur, which is discontinued, unbelievably discontinued. But this is the old B bottle with the bees all over it. Beautiful presentation. I love this fragrance too. Oh, I gotta wear this soon before summer ends. So you can see this is a take on the vintage B bottle, okay, for a modern audience, and easier for them to make too. Not as much detail. It's flat. They can just color the bottle and kind of move on, that kind of thing. So Encens Mythique is a spicy floral fragrance, and it's actually one of the best designer rose ambergris scents, okay? So there's a couple things that are happening here. There is a little bit of that Middle Eastern saffron, and you can see they put the bee on the top too, the Guerlain bee. So there is detailing on the bottle. And there's this beautiful rose ambergris. And Thierry Vassar claims they used real ambergris in fragrances like this, and another one coming up very soon. The word is this is being discontinued. I don't know. You never know with Guerlain. They could discontinue it and rename it, you know, Rose Ambergris Under the Sea Prick or something. Who knows? I mean, they got crazy names that they're starting to come up with. But there's this combination of ambergris and rose. I think it was Galen, maybe it was Rich Mitch, but one of them said that it almost feels like you're standing alone on a coastline and you're just like staring out into the ocean. You're just realizing just how small you are in the grand scheme of things, you know. It has that you know, when you look at the earth and all the moving parts and everything that happens and all that stuff, and then you think about how small you are and how short of a time we live compared to how the billions and billions of years that the earth has been around, that it has that feel to it. You know, it's a very introspective fragrance. It makes you think about your place in the world, your existence, and that's special. I mean, for any fragrance to do that to you, but whenever I saw that review, I thought, wow, he really nailed this one, because it does have a little bit of that. But on the other side, it's such a beautiful smell. You know, you could wear this anywhere. And it has great longevity. It lasts forever. People will smell you. And the fact, if you're, you know, this is completely unisex, but if you're a man and you're okay wearing rose, like it took me a while to warm up to rose. Now I love it. But, you know, when you go out in the world wearing something like this, you smell different from 99.9% of the guys who are wearing Sauvage and Eros and all that crap. And, you know, people pick up on that. They realize that. So for a fragrance that can kind of walk that line, on one side, it makes you smell very different from everyone else. On the other side, you're interested enough to continue smelling the fragrance and breaking it down, and you're enjoying it for yourself, which is the main reason to wear fragrance. But Encens Mythique hits so many of those, you know, bullet points. It's I think it's a fantastic scent, one of my favorite rose fragrances, and an amazing ambergris fragrance as well. Whether it's real, you know, Thierry Wasser says some of it's real, and who knows, maybe a drop is real and the rest is ambroxan, who knows, but it's an amazing perfume. And then in 2012, they also released a fragrance called Songe d'un Bois d'Et. Okay, and this might be my favorite from the Absolutes d'Orient range. Now, they did a usual Guerlain move in that they discontinued Songe du Bois d'Et, and everyone lost their mind. And then they re-released it in something called Bois Mystérieux. And these are the exact same fragrance, basically. So don't pay big money for Songe du Bois d'Et. Some people say there are differences. Maybe one day I'll do a side-by-side comparison. I'm completely agnostic. I could wear this. I could wear this. You know, they both do it for me. They're both spicy oriental fragrances that when it first came out, so this line apparently came out over a bet. And this was the first fragrance Wasser created based on that bet. He traveled to the Middle East, and someone told him that you Frenchmen don't know how to make a Middle Eastern perfume. And so he took that as a challenge. He took it as a personal attack, and he created Songe du Bois d'Et. I mean, beautiful bottle, too. Look, you can see the details. The Guerlain bee is in there. It's just absolutely stunning. Stunning versions of the Guerlain bee all over the gold dripping over the bottle. I don't have a cap because this is a tester, but I love these bottles. And, oh no, my monitor messed up. What am I going to do? Let me turn it off and turn it on. Okay, good. It fixed. All right. So, so this is a tester, and I'm so glad to have this. But I heard that Bois Mystérieux was potentially being discontinued, so I bought a backup. I love it enough to buy I love it enough to buy a backup. So the thing about this fragrance is that it is lots of bay leaf and saffron, and lots of leather and myrrh. They initially, if you go to Fragrantica, they will show an oud note in here. I don't pick up an oud accord, but I do pick up a leather accord. And if you wear this with the, understanding that this is a leather fragrance, not an oud fragrance, I think you'll appreciate the experience more. If you wear it like an oud fragrance, go watch my review of Rouge's Majestic Oud. Remember, I said it's weird. It doesn't smell like an oud fragrance, even though they're calling it Majestic Oud. This was something very similar. People were going, man, is this oud? What is this? But I think if you view it as a leather fragrance with patchouli and cedar, and there is a big cedar note in here too. It's very woody. But I love that perfume. It's so unique. So I can't think of anything even today that smells like that. And then in 2014, 2 years later, they released probably the most popular one from the line, and that is Santal Royal. Okay? Now, Santal Royal gets a lot of love from the mainstream and gets a lot of hate from fragrance lovers, okay? It's this oriental woody that has a giant rose note. So it's rose, jasmine, neroli with peach, cinnamon, sandalwood, leather, amber, oud, and musk. And there is that synthetic oud molecule that is used across the industry. You're going to get it here. If you're sensitive to that synthetic oud accord, whatever you want to call it, you may hate this. It's also very powerful, very nuclear. I was worried about this because I blind bought it, and look, they put the little Guerlain bee up there now. How nice of them. The old bottles I don't think had that, or maybe it's the new ones that don't have it. I don't know, but either way, they put this out in 2014, and it kind of caught fire in a way, and some people loved it, some people hated it. And I was worried I was going to hate it. I don't hate it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I think I could wear this. But again, if you go off of the name, if you expect some sort of amazing sandalwood fragrance, you're going to smell this and go, what in the world is this? You know, it's going to take you to about hour 3 or 4 before you start to get that sandalwood. And it smells like you're smelling that Australian sandalwood, you know, something like that, you're not smelling that normal, it's not like Mysore sandalwood where you get that creamy, milky smoothness. No, this is, it's a little harsh. It's a little bit pickly. You know, it is, just go in with expectations that it's not going to be a sandalwood perfume. It's going to take you a long time to get to that sandalwood dry down. But if you like rose, okay, if you're a guy and you smell rose and you go, oh my God, it's not for me, you're going to struggle with this. But if you like rose and you can, you know, you can have rose in your perfume and not freak out, these two, probably Encens Mythique is the one I'd recommend, but these two both have a Middle Eastern style rose note where anyone can wear it, man or woman. They're both completely unisex. But I think mostly guys lean towards this Middle Eastern range, but I don't know. I mean, on the Parfumo breakdown, it says 75% of the users who own this are men and 25% are women. That makes sense to me. That totally makes sense. But I could see a woman smelling this and getting that rose note and going, wow, this is unique and different, and I really love it. Okay, so let's jump to the year 2015. Thierry released a flanker of Abbey Rouge, and he called it Dress Code. Now, Dress Code is a fragrance that is a bit of a guilty pleasure for me. What they did is every single year they released a new bottle. So the 2015 bottle, when it first came out, with the handkerchief plaid, you know, design on the front of the bottle, and it's in this version where everything's clear and the sticker's only right here. And then I think in 2016 they released this almost like camo bottle where the camo was all over here. And then this is a 2017 bottle, tester, no cap, where it's like, you know, this is just a sticker, but it gives this impression of sharp edges. And so they did a new bottle every year, which I like that idea. I loved it. But now it's discontinued, okay? They don't do Dress Code anymore. And it's this spicy, woody take on Abbey Rouge. And you're going to get some rose, you're going to get some spices, you're going to get some leather, and you're going to get that Guerlain, that vanilla Tonka, you know, base thing going on. And you're going to get a note of pralines. And normally I would say no perfume should ever have a goddamn praline note, especially not a masculine perfume. But I do like this. I'm sympathetic to this fragrance, okay? Even though it's not my style, it's mass appealing, but it's done very well. And I wish they wouldn't have discontinued this, to be quite honest. I don't know why they did. They should have just put it in the, you know, standard bottle with everything else and kept selling it if the bottle was a problem, you know. There is a little bit of leatheriness in the base, which, you know, you will find in Abbey Rouge as well. You have to search for the leather, I think, in both. It doesn't just come out and grab you. You got to kind of wear it and search for it over time. But I like this. This is a thumbs up for me. When you first spray, I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the strange, maybe it's because of that strange praline note. I'm not sure, but for some reason, the opening reminded me of this Eau Sauvage Parfum, which is one of my favorite designer fragrances of all time. It is so good. I mean, as far as a designer goes, this could easily be in Dior's niche line. I don't know, I'm the only one who said that. Maybe I'm off my rocker, but these two share some opening compounds for some reason. And I think they both came out. This came out in 2012. This came out in 2015. So maybe there's some myrrh in dress code and it's not listed. Oh, God. I love both of these fragrances, but yes, dress code is one to put on the list. I think I paid $170 with Mood de Cire for this. Don't pay $500 for this. Do not give the scalpers $500 for this. It's not worth it. If you can find one for under $200, I'd say go for it, but know what you're getting yourself into. Good fragrance, though. I'm a fan. Okay, now we're going to go to 2016, and 2016 has two fragrances in it. One is, of course, the one that I was showing, the L'Homme Idéal bottle. When it first came out, it had this line, this plastic around the outside. Now the whole bottle is glass. There's no plastic, okay? So the whole bottle's glass, and they've changed the look of it, and now has a black cap instead of a beige cap to match. So they're constantly changing stuff. But this is the Eau de Parfum. Now, the original came out, I want to say, 4 or 5 years before this. I'm not a big fan of the EDT, so I went for the EDP. Even though it's sweet, again, sometimes I can stand sweet in certain situations. This is sweet, and I like it. This is sweet, and I really have to be in the mood to wear it. It's very designer-ish, but he went back to that almond note. Remember I told you he used a beautiful almond note in Tonka Impériale? You know, almost like this fresh bakery type smell with the Tonka, with the almond note. Here, kept the Tonka, kept the almond note, made it more mass appealing. Added some sandalwood, that vanilla, of course, that you expect to play off of the Tonka, and frankincense and some leathery touches. I'm not sure where those leathery touches come from, but you get this sweet almondy cherry-like vibe. Even though there's no cherry listed, you get this cherry almond-like vibe. It's very mass appealing. It is, you know, if you had to pick a designer to wear, I guess, I would probably pick something like this. I mean, Dior Homme Parfum, or I mean, would you consider this a designer? I guess you'd have to. I'd probably pick something like this. I mean, from the designer line, this is, now this version's discontinued, the 2012. They reformulated it into the 2017, and it has elemi instead of myrrh, and there's some other changes, but I prefer the 2012 version. But yes, I mean, as far as a designer line goes, I think Thierry Vasseur did a good job. This is better than just going and wearing Sauvage or Eros or something like that. Even Bleu de Chanel, I'd take this over Bleu de Chanel, personally. So there you have it. A sweet fragrance that I actually can wear. And then the one that got away, the one that I wish I had a full bottle of, I don't. I have a decant. I actually have two decants. I have this 10 ml and I have a 5 ml, and I guess this will just have to hold me over. This is so good, though. Speaking of real ambergris in a perfume, this is called Ambre Éternal. And Ambre Éternal is not an amber fragrance. It's an ambergris fragrance. It's an ambergris fragrance. Oh, it's so good. Oh, God, I love this stuff. I love it because it highlights two of my favorite notes, leather and ambergris. And there's an old school masculine coriander note, which I love, as you can tell. Smelling that Caract&egrave right now, oh, God. That old school, it has that old school coriander, cardamom. There's a little bit of freshness from the Orange Blossom Absolute. There's probably a bunch of Isoe Super, or whatever you want to call it. Ambroxan, Ambroxana. I don't know what the hell I'm not a perfumer. I don't know all of the, molecules that they use. but I know that I really like this fragrance. I'm a big fan of Ombre Éternal. Prices are insane now. I don't want to pay $400 a bottle. If I could find this for $200 or under, I'm all over it. It's full bottle worthy to me. It got discontinued right away, probably because the ambergris in here it smells huge. I mean, when you spray, you get an ambergris accord mixed with those spices, and it's very ethereal, very ozonic, but with that heavy leather, woody amber. There is some amber in the base, but it's not an amber fragrance. I think it's an ambergris fragrance. And I can see why Guerlain discontinued it, especially if it costs a lot of money to put real ambergris in. You know, if they're spending $30,000, $50,000 on ambergris every batch they make, I mean, I could totally see that getting very expensive. Okay, so let's go to the fragrance that is God, Salvador Dali Pour Homme, man. Oh my God, it's so good. I need to wear that soon. All right, let's go to the fragrance that is credited to Delphine, Jelk, and Thierry. This is a fragrance called Guerlain's Louis. Now, it comes in this beautiful box, leather box, okay? And you open it up, and there's this tiny little bottle in there. Probably overkill for the 50 ml, but these used to be... I got this for $50, and they renamed this Œillet Pourpre. Œillet Pourpre. Terrible name. I mean, for everyone who's not French, I guess. I don't know. But they renamed it, and they put it in the bottle that's refillable that costs $400 now. It's insane. Absolutely insane. I bet you Guerlain's sales must have tanked after they did that. People just aren't going to pay that, I don't think. Maybe they are. I don't know. Maybe there's enough Guerlainophiles, they'll buy anything. But this came out in 2017. It's a 50 ml bottle. I'm glad to have it. It's a beautiful carnation, vanilla. So there's this like carnation, benzoin, vanilla leather thing going on with slight touches of smoke. And in the top, you get this juicy pear. And I almost included this in the clove video I did. I didn't. I could have. I mean, you can't include everything, but this does have this clove note in there. Yeah, I mean, I easily could have included it in the clove video. If you're a fan of clove and you watch that video and you're interested in maybe trying something else, you can check out this one. So this is Louis in the old form, or Œillet Pourpre in the new form. But I've never tried the new stuff, so I don't know. Sorry, I was too lazy to do my hair again. I'm starting to get really lazy about it. I'm like, whatever, who cares? I don't even want to mess with it. I'll put a hat on. All right, and then we're going to jump to 2019. And this is one of the few fragrances Rich, Mitch, and I disagree on. I love this fragrance, but again, it's in my wheelhouse. A very easy sell for me. This is Cuir Intense. Cuir Intense by Guerlain. Beautiful bee. Let's see, is there a bee on the atomizer? No, no bee on the atomizer. Only on Santal Royal. Oh God, I love this stuff. It is leathery, spicy, and there's one of the most perfect osmanthus notes you could ever imagine. I was talking about osmanthus in the Rouge Majestic Oud video I did. The osmanthus in this is absolutely stunning. Osmanthus, ylang-ylang, with leather, musk, some cedar, some sandalwood, and tobacco. And the sandalwood is the sandalwood that you'll smell in Santal Royal. There are leathery touches that are similar to Ombre Éternal, so they're using, I think, similar molecules across the line. But this just takes that leather note. They remove the ambergris. So this probably was a child of Ombre Éternal, because they kept the leathery feel from this. They added the sandalwood from Santal Royal, and they jacked the leather molecules up to 100. You know, it's so... Oh, it's so good. Oh, I love that leathery. Whatever they're using, I don't care. I don't care if it's synthetic. I don't care. I absolutely love it. And it's beautiful. So Cuir Intense, if you like leather fragrances, this is one I don't think you'll be disappointed on, but it is massive. This is a massive perfume. This stuff lasts 24 hours on my skin. I mean, it's giving Furyo a run for its money, which is saying something. You know, this stuff is so powerful, but I love it. Okay. And the final one, we're in 2020. So as you can see, I haven't bought any Guerlains in 21 or 22. None of the stuff they released. The house is starting to really disappoint me, to be honest with you. I would like to try their new fragrance called Oud Kohl. They also did Cherry Oud, which I have no interest in trying. Oud Nude, which I have no interest in trying. But this Oud Kohl, I'm very interested in trying. I wish I could procure a sample somewhere, but I'm too lazy. It'll either fall in my lap, I'll find it somewhere, or I just won't bother. I mean, it's not worth it now that I have the real oud fragrances from Bortnikov and Russian Adam. It's hard to get excited about a Guerlain, but Oud Kohl does get me interested because of the note breakdown and because of the idea of the scent. But this is 2020. This is also sweet. It's a flanker to the L'Homme Idéal line, and this is called L'Homme Idéal Extrême. Now, this is the old, remember I was telling you they took away the plastic on the bottles for L'Homme Idéal. So this is when it first came out in 2020. They then repackaged it in the same bottle, but different color scheme. So black cap, silver sticker instead of red, that says L'Homme Idéal Extrême. And I love this stuff. I mean, I heard some people say that, oh, they're not too big on this. It's just too sweet. It's too synthetic. I don't know. Maybe when you mix, maybe I just like the way Thierry Vassar does sweet. I don't know, but the cap clicks onto place. It is that almond note. They added a beautiful juicy plum with the cinnamon heliotrope. There's that, the heliotrope in here, you know, I always mention heliotrope give you that like Play-Doh vibe, you know, like you're creating a mold of your tooth and you pull the Play-Doh out and it keeps the mold, you know, that malleable type feel. Heliotrope does that, but they've mixed it with almond, which also gives a little bit of that, you know, malleable, almondy-like feel. So it's almond and heliotrope, and then the base is tobacco, which I love tobacco. And the tobacco note in here is beautiful with leather and cedar and patchouli and that cinnamony warmth. This is a beautiful fragrance for winter. Absolutely stunning. They never, in LVMH's brilliance, because they're so smart, they never released this in the United States. One of the best flankers they did, and they never released it in the United States. It's unbelievable. I mean, sometimes I wonder who the hell is running these companies. You know what I mean? Like, what genius is making these decisions? You know, they're probably getting paid $1 million a year as an executive or something, but my God. So that's my Thierry Vassar and Delphine Jelk video. Thank you, Thierry Vassar, for all the work you've done. Thank you, Delphine Jelk. I hope you guys can continue keeping the classics in good form. My prayers are with you, although I'm not holding my breath. You know, I just feel like the best days of Guerlain are in its past, although, you know, he's trying to keep things up to date. If you're a perfume lover and you've never smelled Shalimar, Mitsuko, Le Bleu, Jacques, Mouchoir de Monsieur, Heritage, Abbey Rouge, the original vetiver from the late 50s, L'Instant de Guerlain, Eau Extrême. If you've never smelled these classic fragrances from Guerlain, do yourself a favor. Get your nose on them. They will change your life. I mean, it's a life-changing experience, honestly. Metallica, oh God, I wish I could find a bottle of Metallica. If anyone has a bottle of Metallica, I know I said if anyone has a bottle of Ambre Éternal, but if anyone ever watches this and they have a bottle of Metallica or Métallis for sale, I would love to buy a bottle of that stuff. It's impossible to find. And when you do, the people are just, you know, They're like pirates. Oh, you want a bottle? Sure, I'll sell you a bottle. How about $1,500? How does that sound? Well, it sounds like forget you, man. But yes, it's you know, wearing something like Shalimar, wearing Mitsuko, wearing Abbey Rouge, wearing Vetiver. It's like you're wearing an artifact, you know, from the past, something amazing, an amazing creation. And so, you know, I hope they can continue to keep those fragrances up and in good condition. So we've hit an hour. Thank you very much, everyone who's watched, liked, subscribed. I know I don't ask that very much, but it does help the algorithms. Subscriptions help what gets recommended next, how many comments the video gets, you know, how many likes the video gets, even though I don't care about that stuff because I don't consider myself a YouTuber. I don't care about it from the channel's perspective. I'm not doing it to make myself famous or anything. I don't want to be the perfume guy. I just want to have people who fit our mold, okay, of someone who loves fragrances, someone who views it as an art form, and maybe they're stuck watching, you know, Jeremy Fragrance or whatever it is, and, you know, they want something, they want to take the next step. I want them to be able to find me, and they won't be able to do that if I'm buried in the algorithm. But, you know, that's why I would ask you to subscribe and like and comment. But on the other side of the coin, if you've watched and you don't, no problem at all. It is, I'm just happy to have you watching my content. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learned something. And so the Thierry Vasseur Delphine Jelk video is in the book. So cheers, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow with another video. Bye now.